when I became famous and came into money, I just went a bit off the rails. Everywhere I was going, girls were throwing themselves at me and people wanted to party with me and people were doing everything they could to try and keep me awake all night with them. Oh my God, I'm hanging out with such and such actor and such footballer and this is fun. This is mad. Like my life's mad right now.
When your family stage an intervention, what does that look like?
Well, it's just not nice to see your parents cry, you know?
Money and fame, they often say, can show you who you are, or it can bring out the best and worst in you. And one of the things you said is the person I was when I was 27 was a fucking monster compared to the person I was when I was 21.
Yeah.
What did you mean by fucking monster?
I was just, I hadn't tried Class A drugs until I was 23, which is mad because most of my friends and peer group in music and that I grew up with were probably doing it at 14. And then I just think when I became famous and came into money, I just went a bit off the rails with drugs and alcohol. But I was also in a relationship where I was lying to my girlfriend and cheating on her. And I was just, everywhere I was going, girls were throwing themselves at me and people wanted to party with me and people were doing everything they could to try and keep me awake all night with them. You know, whether it was girls or bad influences, other celebrities, you know, and then you get carried away because you're like, oh my God, I'm hanging out with such and such actor and such footballer and this model and this person and we've got access to this bar and this club and we've walked straight into this restaurant and got a table. So you just go off the rails a bit. And I feel like everybody kind of needs to when you get to that stage. Every artist, actor that I've spoken to, whether they've chipped away at it for years like I did, or just had this sudden overnight fame, I feel like you kind of need to get it out of your system. Because it's kind of like, I'm not saying everyone has to, but nearly everybody I know is just like, oh God, how amazing does this feel? Like, I'm getting free clothes and free trainers and I've just been given this free car. I'm getting upgraded on this flight and I've got this table at this restaurant that I couldn't get before. I've been invited to this premiere. I was just on that television show with that Hollywood actor. And then I'm in this person's house, you know, this person's giving me free drugs and this girl wants to sleep with me and these girls want a threesome and then all this shit. So like, why would you not take it? Because you get to do something that, you know, it's like a 1 in a million thing. No one else gets to do this. And you don't go, I need to do this because no one else gets to do it. You're just like, this is fun. This is mad. Like my life's mad right now. And I just defy anyone to not do the same. I mean, I think, you know, sometimes like top level athletes, because they have to, their focus is being an athlete. So it's all about their body and their fitness. They can't do drugs and alcohol in the same way. So I think that's why a lot of footballers just end up like, oh, I'm going to have 15 cars or I'm going to get a gambling addiction. Because so everyone needs some kind of vice, I guess. I mean, all human beings need some kind of vice anyway. I think that's how we're built. We're not meant to just live squeaky clean, like constantly. Like I think life's boring. Like, and it doesn't have to be sex or drugs and alcohol, but you need something. You need something to obsess over that feels a little bit like naughty, a little bit edgy.
What was the cost? Because I mean, all that sounds great, but there's got to be, everything in life has a cost.
Well, the cost was that I broke a lovely girl's heart, and you know, it took her a while to deal with that, I'm sure, afterwards. And you know, I probably upset quite a few people along the way. I know my parents weren't proud of me, even though I was doing really well career-wise. There was like a moment where there was a bit of an intervention. You know, it was almost like, what have you become? You know, we're not proud of you. This is not cool.
What caused that?
I think there was just one weekend at Glastonbury where I just kind of went down with my band and crew and my girlfriend and my sister, and I just kind of completely went off the radar, kind of disappeared for 48 hours. And then everyone was like, where is he? And obviously Glastonbury's a crazy place to get lost in anyway. And then I just turned up 15 minutes before I went on stage. So I was still professional. But I was in an absolute state around like 2012, 2010 to 2012. Well, it wasn't great.
When your family stage an intervention, what does that look like in like real terms? Is that like a phone call or is that?
Well, no, it's like sort of catching me off guard and sitting me down in a room, you know, and showing me how disappointed they are.
And how did you take that?
Well, it's just not nice to see your parents cry, you know? It's quite, you know, it still took me a few years after that to get my act together. But yeah, I don't feel like there's any real shame in it looking back. Like I'm not saying I'm proud of it, but I just feel like certain mistakes had to be made. It's like in the same way that I don't really have any regrets about anything. I'm just like everything I've ever done in life, however bad it is, whoever I've hurt or whatever, I've learned from it and I've tried to make amends for it, you know?
Is there, in hindsight, information that you didn't have that caused you to choose that path? Like, is there something you now know that is stopping you from repeating that cycle and just continuing to do that?
Well, it's just like, I mean, like my mum always said, like, as a kid, she was like, I was a liar as a kid, but she said they were like, not really lies that really hurt anyone. She said, I just knew that you had this overly creative brain and this imagination, so you would just take situations and just exaggerate them. And she was like, and it kind of makes sense that you're a songwriter and you're a storyteller, and I get that. And looking back now, there were certain times where I know it would have really upset my parents and my mum in particular, because she was spending more time with me probably day to day. You know, like telling like little white lies about scenarios that had happened, just because I sort of enjoyed the fact maybe that I could attention seeking, could manipulate a situation, that I could take a situation and my imagination run wild with it and create other scenarios. And I think that was it's something that I don't do at all anymore. But like lying as a kid and then carrying that through, then I obviously realized at school you can't get away with certain things because, you know, there's structure and there's teachers, so it probably calmed me down a bit then. And then I'd had like 4 serious girlfriends and I'd never once cheated on them because it just wasn't on my radar. It wasn't the way I've been brought up. But it was just like, I guess, and I've spoken to other guys about this and girls. It's just like you have that first time you do it, you feel bad, and then 1 becomes 2, and then 2 becomes 5, and 5 becomes 10, and then it just kind of spirals out of control, and you kind of just like numb your brain to it. And I just don't think there's no one signs a record deal or gets into the music industry and has a record label or a manager come up to them and go, by the way, there's a good chance you're going to be really successful and famous in the next year or 2 years. So read this book. Here's a pamphlet on how to not be a CUNT.
People often say that if you are a late to lose your virginity, when you get into your adulthood, you kind of make up for lost time.
Well, that was me. So all my friends were losing their virginity at 13 and 14, and I was 17 and a half. So I was probably one of the last at my school. Maybe it's just a part of South London I grew up in.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.